Shalom, holy initiates and holy adepts. This video is a very advanced esoteric video that will introduce some of the highest mysteries dealing with the Luciferian domain. Now, as some of you may or may not know, my channel is extremely advanced. And if you are a born-again Christian or an unholy, impure occultist, I ask that you please leave this video and channel as you are not welcome. This video is only for those who are or aspire to be very holy initiates and adepts of the highest order. And as you should know, we speak through the form of occult symbols, riddles, parables, and allegories. And you must be properly trained and initiated to understand these very holy mysteries. And you must have a very proper, ancient, very wise mindset to be able to fathom and understand many of the holy mysteries that I explain and teach throughout many of my videos on this channel. So let that be a very brief introduction into this most very advanced and powerful video that I'm going to now begin. Now, before I actually get into the essence of the disquisition dealing with the Luciferian mysteries, or what I personally like to call the Black Kabbalah, I think a proper natural exordium is required. So let us begin. I want to first start off by stating mentioning some very critical points of the highest order that we read about in the Holy Word. Now, we read that Moshe was essentially the chief magician of Egypt. We also read that Yosef was also the chief magician of Egypt in his generation. We also read that Daniel, one of the greatest prophets, was the chief magician of Babylon. We also read that Abraham and Yaakov descended to Egypt. Now, let us first deal with the first two particulars. We have three saints of the highest order, literally of the highest order, who should be duly noted as the most powerful and chief magicians that have ever walked the earth. Now we need to ask ourselves Kabbalistically, what does this mean when we read that these saints of the highest order were the chief magicians of these respective countries? Now, these statements have many esoteric levels to them. And our principal esoteric books and literature explain some of these levels. Now, we read in Sefer HaZohar, one of the most principal mysteries behind these statements. Now, first we need to understand what these code words signify. What does Egypt signify? What does Babylon signify? If you have seen some of my other videos, hopefully you've seen all of them, then you know and you understand that Egypt and Babylon are exclusive references to the Luciferian domain. These are some very powerful statements. When we read that Moshe, Yosef, and Daniel are the chief magicians of Egypt and Babylon, what this is telling us is that these individuals are fully, the emphasis being put on the word fully, and completely initiated into the Luciferian mysteries. Meaning that, for all intents and purposes, we may state that these individuals are, we can't say on a loose technical basis that they are black magicians, but they are not practicing black magicians. Being fully initiated into the Luciferian mysteries means that these individuals have all the knowledge and wisdom dealing with the Luciferian domain. If they so choose and desire, they would and could be the most powerful black magicians that have ever walked the earth. And we have a perfect prime example of that, where we read about King Shlomo, the son of David, who was the most powerful black magician that has ever walked the earth, him himself being the chief magician of Israel. The implications and the ramifications of all of this just simply cannot be understood or fathomed by, I'm afraid, most of you, or most of humanity, to say the least. Unless, of course, you belong to our esoteric holy divine order. Now, this is what this means. And it's not lost on any fully initiated Kabbalist like myself. Now, we also read that Abraham and Yaakov descended to Egypt. What does this mean? What does this signify? Well, we read in Sefer HaZohar, it tells us that Abraham and Yaakov descending to Egypt means that they were initiated into the holy mysteries. This means that their descent signifies full initiation into the Luciferian domain. Okay? Now, we must not pervert and corrupt these very holy esoteric understandings. Okay? Like many retarded and stupid, impure, unholy, mostly Gentile occultists will pervert and subvert these understandings. Okay, we are not saying that one must be evil or commit sin. No, what we are saying is that they are acquiring a knowledge and a wisdom of the Luciferian mysteries, which is totally separate from actually practicing the knowledge and the wisdom of the Luciferian domain, which is sin. Now, this is what this means. Abraham and Yaakov descending to Egypt signifies that they were initiated into the Luciferian mysteries. Now, we also read that Moshe was born in Egypt. And the implications and the ramifications of the statement just simply cannot be underscored, to say the least. We also read that Yeshua descended to Egypt. So again, these are more examples of these saints. Really what they are literally incarnations of the highest gods. These are actually gods in the flesh that we are speaking of here, if we're going to get as deep as the divine well goes. Okay? And because they are gods in the flesh, it's only natural that they're going to be fully initiated into the Luciferian mysteries. Now, I like to ask many uninitiated, profane, religious individuals, mostly Christians, who is greater, Yeshua or Moshe? Now, to a full-blown holy initiate or adept, that's a very simple, easy question. But this stumps most Christians. Most Christians are either stumped or too ignorant to fully understand or even answer the question. Who is greater, Yeshua or Moshe? You have to be fully initiated into the holy mysteries to know the answer to this momentous question. Both Yeshua and Moshe are Mashiach. Different manifestations of Mashiach, different partsufim or sferot of Mashiach. Now, here I have already given you the answer in plain sight, hidden in plain sight. Yeshua descended to Egypt at a very young age, right? As opposed to Abraham and Yaakov, who descended to Egypt when they were well advanced in years. But Yeshua descends into Egypt at a very, very young age, while Moshe is born in Egypt. Here we are given the rank and level of each figure, of each symbol. Abraham and Yaakov rank last. Then comes Yeshua. Finally, Moshe comes in first place. So the answer to the question is that Moshe is greater than Yeshua. Now, we have essentially, for the past 2,000 years, we have had essentially two divine legislators. Two divine holy legislators, vis-a-vis Moshe and Yeshua. One to the Jews, one to the Christians. Now, the Jews are of Beit Yehuda, and the Christians are of Beit Ephraim, which are the lost 10 tribes. Which is greater? Who is greater, the Jew or the Christian? I've already answered this question in another video. The Jew is far greater and superior to the Christian. To be known is greater than to be lost. Our divine legislator, which is Moshe, is far greater than the other divine legislator, which is Yeshua. Now, if you are a Christian watching this, and hopefully you're not a baby Christian, Perhaps you may be offended at this. If you are, then please leave. This video is not for you. This channel is not for you. This is, as I'm always stating, this video is for very advanced holy initiates and adepts. Okay, we're at the PhD level here, more, so to speak, parabolically speaking. Okay? So, with that established, we may now proceed to get into the actual essence of the disquisition, which is Haklipoth. When we are dealing with the Black Kabbalah and the Luciferian mysteries, the first term that must be known and mastered is the Hebrew word klipoth, which is the plural of klipa, which is the singular. This base Hebrew term, which has 7 meanings, essentially means, on the more literal level, a shell or a husk. And there are many great profound mysteries behind this Hebrew word. Now, the klipoth are essentially the antithesis or the inverse of the Sferoth. We use the term Sferoth. It is exclusively designated for the holy domain, whereas the term klipoth is exclusively designated for the Luciferian or satanic domain. Now, just as there are 10 Sferoth, it would logically follow that there must be 10 klipoth, because they are perverse or upside down mirror image of the Sferoth. Okay, we begin. The holy royal divine law begins with the revelation of 2 trees. We have the tree of life, and we have the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The tree of life, on one of its many levels, is an occult symbol for the Sferoth. And the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is an occult symbol for the klipoth. And they are essentially can be thought of as 2 mirror images of each other, where the klipoth is a perverse upside down mirror image of the Sferoth. Okay, so this is the first gate, the actual first gate into initiation into Luciferian mysteries. Now we're going to get much deeper here with more scriptural proofs and more scriptural understandings of this most necessary and requisite foundation. Now, I want to begin with the first type parable in beginning to understand and fathom the klipoth. Now, here I have a snapshot of the lower part of the Sferoth, or Adam Kadmon. Okay, we begin with the 7th and 8th emanations, which are Hod and Netzach. And Hod represents the archetypal divine left testy, while Netzach represents the archetypal divine right testy. And Zadik represents the archetypal divine phallus, and we know that Malchut represents the archetypal divine pudendum, okay? But we also need to understand from this very high parabolic standpoint that there also exists the anus. And the anus is essentially the root and source of the klipoth. We also need to understand that in reference to the genitalia, there are 2 holes. There are two tubes actually. So there's 2 tubes that in the genitalia. One tube is for the choicest of substances, which is seed to come forth and be emitted, and the other tube is for waste. Okay, so by the time you get to the last emanations, which are the genitalia, this is occultly represented by the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The good represents the holy tube of the genitalia, by which the holy seed is emitted, and the other tube is the impure evil aspect by which the waste is emitted. Okay, so we need to understand this, okay, because this is what we're dealing with. When we are speaking of the klipoth, we are speaking of the waste, the dross, the byproduct of Adam Kadmon. Now, why would anyone want to work and deal with that? You know, why would anyone, you know, want to meditate and work with feces and urine and eat feces and eat urine? These are analogies that are used to compare what very impure, unholy, evil, retarded, and stupid occultists and magicians for so many generations have been doing. They work with divine entities. They perform black magic. They are working in this Luciferian domain of the klipoth, working with the anus and the waist of Adam Kadmon. That's how inferior these individuals show themselves to be. Now, I'm going to read to you a very select passage from the Cordoverian Kabbalah. So this is from Moshe Cordovero's Magnus Opus, Pardes Rimonim, which is Hebrew for Gate of Pomegranates, in Gate 25, to be found in Chapter 1 of Gate 25. Now, in Pardes Rimonim, which is his Magnus Opus, Gates 25 and Gates 26 are primarily all about initiation into the Black Kabbalah or the Luciferian mysteries. So here I'm going to read to you a select passage from his Magnus Opus that is very brilliantly introducing, introductory aspects of the Klipoth. He begins by stating, "It is true that above in the place of emanation, no evil descends from heaven, for everything above is refined to the highest degree. But as things coarsen while they descend according to the various stages of emanation, necessarily food is separated from food, creating waste." Another beautiful and more accurate parable is to compare this to the semen of man, the choicest substance produced in one's body. This leads the brain via the testicles to the penis, and from the semen in the womb, a child is formed together with other repulsive matters. One would think these repulsive matters were formed in the brain, the choicest part of the body. Certainly not, since he would immediately perish. Rather, this repulsiveness results when the drop of semen goes from place to place and from level to level. The repulsiveness results when the choice part from which the child is created separates and the filth comes from the rest. So it is with emanation. Above in its place there is no evil. However, when it is drawn below through the separation of purity and sanctity, an impure element of waste and dross comes from it. Now here, he's giving a very ancient, well-known parable that would be given by all grandmasters to their adepts and initiates upon initiation and entry into the gates of the Klipoth, or Luciferian initiation. Now, where did he himself derive or learn this parable from? Well, again, this is a parable that all Grandmaster Kabbalists use for the purposes of holy Luciferian initiation. Okay? Now, this parable is actually found in our most esoteric principal text, Sefer HaZohar. And there it is given, if you're actually fluent in ancient Hebrew and Aramaic, it is given in what can only be described as the most eloquent and most poetic, most brilliant, most genius form that it could ever be given. And I'm going to read to you an English translation here very shortly of this passage in Sefer HaZohar that is revealing this most esoteric, most holiest of mysteries, dealing with the beginning and the formation of HaKlipoth, all extracted from the first parasha of the Torah. So, regarding this divine birth of Adam Kadmon and the refuse, the dross, and the waste, Sefer HaZohar states, "Similar to engraving the form of the image of a man as he is engendered, for when a human is engendered at first seed, which is light, for that seed is radiance of all members of the body, so it is light, and that light is called sown seed, as it is written, light is sown for the righteous," quoting Sefer Tehillim chapter 97 verse 11. Real seed, then that seed which is light spreads and becomes water. In its moisture it is further engraved, expanding within the water, expansion of the body in all directions. Once that form of the image of the body was fashioned and engraved, that expansion congealed, and this is a firmament in the midst of the waters, quoting Sefer Bereshith chapter 1 verse 6. After it congealed, it is written, quoting verse 8, Elohim called the firmament the heavens. For the moisture of the body within that water congealed. Once the body was purified and thoroughly cleansed, the moisture that flowed and remained became refuse formed by smelting, and that is evil muddy waters from which refuse formed Hasatan of the universe, male and female. Now this is all found in Sefer HaZohar and Parashat Terumah, which is book 2, folio 167a. Now, this brief passage that I have just read to you brilliantly elucidates and demonstrates the sheer spiritual genius of what is contained in Sefer HaZohar, of what we read in Sefer HaZohar, that these holy mysteries were penned by the highest and most holiest saints that have ever walked the earth. What we have here is a brilliant illumination and elucidation of some of the opening verses of Parashat Bereshith, of the opening verses of the Torah, revealing some of the most recondite and holiest of mysteries, all contained within some of the opening verses of the Torah, right? Where we read that light is sown. This beginning light that we read about, this primordial holy light that we read about in the Torah, is an occult, may represent occultly holy divine seed. That's what it is. And then it congeals, becoming Adam Kadmon. And there is, as with many processes that we find here on earth, a byproduct, a waste, a refuse that is formed from this holy divine formation. And it is this dross, this refuse, this waste, that then becomes what is known as Haklipoth. Now, I would also like to add that Sefer HaZohar has many folios that go very in-depth, or rather comprehensive, in further explicating the mysteries of Haklipoth. So I have only but cited one very small passage here. Now, we also read in Sefer Tikkun HaZohar in Tikkun 69 in folio 108b, it states, "And these 10 lower crowns are the klipoth to the 10 sferoth." Now, understand that klipoth means a shell or a husk. So what it is essentially saying is that the 10 lower crowns are essentially shells or husks to the 10 sferoth. Okay? We can think of the 10 sferoth, well, we can use the analogy of Adam or man. Man is composed of spirit and body, right? The body is essentially a shell or a husk to the spirit, enclosing the spirit. Likewise, we can think of the 10 sferoth as the actual spiritual nature of Adam Kadmon, and we can think of the 10 klipoth as the actual body or garment of Adam Kadmon, or of the 10 sferoth. So it goes on by stating, and the 10 sferoth are in the midst of the brain, and these klipoth are a partition between Yisrael and their patriarchs in the heavens. These klipoth enclose HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his Shekhinah to establish his Shekhinah. So here we have one of numerous, multitudinous revelations of the klipoth in our principal esoteric texts. We have to understand that the subject of Haklipoth is very enormous, very broad, and very comprehensive in nature. This video is only meant to be but a very, very brief introduction into the subject and matter of the 10 klipoth. Our esoteric texts go way far more in depth into initiating one into these Luciferian mysteries. So I definitely want to emphasize that here, because after you're done watching this entire video, what can be said is that you have but only scratched the surface on this most esoteric holy subject. Now, again, as I stated earlier, we need to understand that the Tree of Life primarily occultly represents the 10 Sefirot, whereas the Tree of Death occultly represents the 10 Klipoth. Now, we read in Sefer HaZohar in Book 2 in Folio 34b, it's in commenting on Sefer Yechezkel, chapter 29, verse 3, where it references the great dragon and the rivers of Egypt. Again, Egypt being a reference to the Luciferian domain, it states, there are 9 rivers in which he sprawls. To every act of those 10 saints correspond those 10 rivers. Again, these rivers are a code word for lights or emanations, because in Aramaic, the Hebrew word river signifies light, as I've mentioned in another video. So this is telling us, again, numerous folios going very in-depth into these Luciferian mysteries, that there are 10 lower crowns, 10 inferior crowns, which are the 10 Klipoth, or 10 rivers. We also read in Book 3 in Folio 207a, it states, Yosef, while he was in Egypt, he learned of that wisdom of theirs, those lower crowns, how those on the right and those on the left are linked, 10 on the right, 10 on the left. He hinted to his father about what he had learned there, as it is written in Bereshith in chapter 45, verse 23. To his father he sent as follows: 10 male donkeys conveying from the best of Egypt and 10 jennies. Now, if you are fully initiated, you know what a donkey or a jenny represents. A donkey or a jenny is a very, very occult symbol. Kabbalistically, it signifies the Luciferian domain. Duly know, as the Zohar is telling us here, that he is conveying to his father 10 of these. This is an exclusive reference to the 10 Klipoth. Now, we need to understand that there's a binary nature to the Sefirot, vis-a-vis male and female. Holistically, it is a hermaphrodite entity. Ergo, it logically follows that its inverse, its antithesis, must also be likewise. And so there is also a binary nature within HaKlipoth, vis-a-vis male and female. This is why in the previous passage that I cited from the Zohar, when referring to Hasatan, it followed it by saying male and female. All Grandmaster Kabbalists know that Lucifer is simultaneously male and female. He is a hermaphrodite entity, just like Mashiach is. So here we have a very, very occult verse in the Torah hinting at the binary nature of HaKlipoth. You have to be initiated to see this. As I said at the beginning of this video, we speak through riddles, parables, and allegories, and occult symbols. You have to be properly trained and initiated to be able to fully fathom and understand all this. To see this, you cannot know this unless somebody tells it to you and teaches it to you. You cannot understand this unless you have eyes to see, unless you were given eyes by Hashem to see all of this. Otherwise, as an example, if you are a baby Christian coming to this video for the first time, this is all going to go over your head. It's just all going to go over your head. You're not going to be able to see any of this. You're not going to be able to understand any of this. Now I'm going to reveal to you the highest and greatest arcanum regarding HaKlipoth. What I'm showing you here on this slide, what I'm about to explain to you and reveal to you, has been concealed, literally concealed, for about 2,000 years. No joke. This is not a joke. What I'm showing you and revealing to you here has literally been concealed for 2,000 years. There has been no one on the scene for 2,000 years that has properly explained or revealed or taught on this verse that is in the last book of the Apocalypse. I am the chief magician of Mystery Babylon. I have been fully initiated, and I have been divinely unctioned by Hashem to go forth and reveal and teach some of the holiest mysteries that have been concealed for over 2,000 years, if not more. And now I'm going to reveal to you one of the greatest arcana that is concealed and encoded and encrypted within this verse that is found in the last book of the Bible, the New Testament, which is the most Kabbalistic and most probably Jewish Kabbalistic book in the entire Bible, period. Okay, it is literally the most esoteric book in the entire Bible. There is no book in the entire Bible, including the Torah, that is more esoteric than the book of the Apocalypse. We read there in chapter 13, verse 1, it states, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy." Now, again, this verse has many levels to it, okay? Now, the stupidity, the retardation, and the ignorance that I see amongst many religious individuals, mostly Christians, okay, is that they don't understand this, they don't know this. They think, many of them think that there is only one level to every aspect of the Bible. And they're always arguing as to which level is the right level, which level is the only level. Total stupidity, total ignorance, okay? There are many levels. And the advanced Christians who know this will have given some advanced levels to this, right? I mean, you know, I don't want to get into the lesser translations and interpretations of this verse. They're not too interesting. But here I'm going to reveal to you the most esoteric. This is the deepest, most esoteric level to this verse. Okay? This is the essence of the matter here, the true essence. If you are initiated, you know that the sea is a code word. It's an exclusive reference to Shekhinah. Okay? You have to be initiated to know this. You have had to master our esoteric text to know and understand this. Okay? Beast, again, these occult symbols have numerous meanings, right? Advanced Christians will tell you that beast can represent a kingdom. Yeah, that's true, it can represent a kingdom. It has many meanings to it. I think Jews would understand the matter in the same way. But at the most esoteric level, beast is a code word for the Luciferian Godhead. Okay? Now, as I've already stated, we have 10 klipoth, but we need to understand that within Hasferoth, we have a binary division between the first 3 Sferoth and the lower 7 Sferoth. It's a natural division of the Sferoth, okay? And I don't have the full time and space to get into explaining this partition, and I say partition through license of language within Hasferoth. So again, it logically follows that this partition also exists within the klipoth, meaning that the first 3 klipoth are hidden. What we are given in this verse then is a revelation of the lower 7 klipoth. Okay? Now, that means that the 7 heads occultly represent the lower 7 klipoth within the Luciferian Godhead. Notice that to each head there are 10 horns, meaning there are 10 levels to each klippa. Okay? And to each horn there are a further 10 levels. Okay? So again, the Sferoth are a hologram in nature, and we find that the klipoth have holographic properties as well. Okay? So there are 10 levels to the 10 horns or 10 crowns. Okay? So we have a revelation in this verse, a full-blown revelation, if you're fully initiated and have eyes to see, of the entire Luciferian Godhead or HaKlipoth. The 7 heads represent the lower 7 klipoth, and the 10 horns represent the 10 archons that exist within each klippa. Okay? And the 10 crowns to each of those 10 horns represent 10 dukes that exist within each archon. So with each klippa has 7 archons under it, and each archon, my mistake, each of the 7 klipoth, each klippa has 10 archons under it, and each archon has 10 dukes under him. Okay? So now let's do the math. On the intermediate level of the Luciferian Godhead, right, we have 10 archons for each klippa for a total of 70 archons. Okay? And so we read in Moshe Cordovero's Pardes Rimonim in Gate 25, chapter 4, he very brilliantly illuminates by stating, regarding the klipoth, he states, they have 70 sferoth and 7 palaces, the same as the holy domain, for they correspond to holiness as a monkey corresponds to man. Again, this is a very fitting parable, and I love it because it goes to expose the total spiritual ignorance, stupidity, and retardation of so many impure, unholy, stupid, ignorant, retarded occultists, mostly goyim, really, who don't know what the hell they got themselves involved with, who are way in over their head, and don't know what the hell they're doing in working black magic and working with impure, unholy, divine entities, vis-a-vis the Klipoth. Right? They would choose to work with the refuse, with the excrement of the holy domain. They would rather work with a monkey than a man. I mean, this just goes to demonstrate the inferiority, the stupidity, the retardation, the ignorance of all of the impure, unholy, ignorant, stupid, retarded, Gentile occultists that have existed for so many centuries. These are all the stupid Western Gentile occultists who claim to be Hermeticists, who claim to belong to secret societies of Hermetic orders, etc. Whether it's the Rosicrucian Order, Skull and Bones, whatever secret society that comes to mind, or the higher levels of Freemasonry, all of these occultists, all of these Gentile occultists, impure, evil, unholy, stupid, retarded, and ignorant, have not been initiated into the higher gates of holy initiation in any regard, in any respect. Okay, now I'm being very euphemistic in explaining all of this because, believe me, in the real world, in real life, I would much rather use much more vulgar, coarse language. I'm just doing my best to keep it PG-13 here. Okay, this is very serious stuff. Now, again, there are 70 archons, 70 impure, unholy archons belonging to Haklipoth, to the Luciferian domain. Okay? Now, we need to understand that there are 144 archons that rule the Goyim. Now, those who have been partially initiated have the advanced understanding from reading the ancient texts that there are 70 archons, and that there are 70 archons that rule over the Goyim. Well, yeah, that's correct. But again, that's partial initiation. You haven't been fully initiated into the full essence of the matter. In reality, it's not limited to 70 archons. There's actually a total of 144 archons that ruled the Goyim. 70 archons belong to the lower Haklipoth, and 70 archons belong to the lower Hasferoth, just as Moshe Cordovero, a Grandmaster Kabbalist, very brilliantly illuminates in his Magnus Opus. Okay, we also need to understand is that there is one king and queen that rule over each set. This is why we have a total. This is why each set has a total of 72 for a total of 144. Okay, we need to further understand that each goy or nation has one good and one evil archon principally presiding over it. This is a natural archetype of Adam, or the human being, who has an evil inclination and a good inclination presiding over him. Okay? And so the nature and state of your path is determined by the balance between the good and the evil inclination, which one you put more weight upon. This is what steers and guides the nations. The actions that a nation takes will either give weight to the evil archon or the holy archon presiding over it. It all depends on the nation's actions and state and state. Likewise, the same applies to the human, to man. Okay, the animus of the holy saint is to convert and redeem the evil inclination for the good inclination. Now, again, going back to what I said a few minutes earlier when I was emoting about all of the spiritual stupidity and ignorance among so many impure, unholy occultists, which just seem to just inundate society these days and have for the past few generations, with so many of these occultists, being so egotistical and proud and thinking they've arrived, thinking they're so initiated, thinking they're so wise. It's total vanity. It's total stupidity, really. Now, the source of all of this is that there have been many very powerful Jewish black magicians. Okay, yes, we Jews, we run the world. We have all of the power. We always have had all of the power. We have the most powerful books in possession. They're very, very esoteric, very well guarded, and every now and then, portions of them are revealed to the rest of the Goyim. Okay, the Goyim get the residuals essentially, and it was during the Middle Ages that some of the most powerful black magicians, along with some very holy Grandmaster Kabbalists, revealed the black keys of King Shlomo. As we know, King Shlomo in the end was the most powerful black magician that has ever walked the earth, being the chief magician of Israel. Okay, he was fully initiated into both the holy and Luciferian mysteries, no different than Moshe, Yosef, etc. The only difference between him and them is that he chose the dark side. Okay, and these black keys of King Solomon, known as the, Legamatan, the Lesser Key of Solomon, these are just some names of certain occult books that if you're an occultist, probably you remember that come to mind. All of these books are basically evil grimoires. Okay, now these have been some of the most powerful grimoires and treatises on black magic for over, I don't know, half a millennial or so. And the vast majority of Gentiles, mostly being very stupid and ignorant, got attracted to these books. This is what became of the occult. And they started reading these books and using these books, actually invoking and evoking the divine entities that are found within these grimoires that all go back to King Shlomo. Now, the first point to be made is that when these holy texts, because even though they are Luciferian in nature, that they're still holy, when they were revealed, they were purposefully revealed with corruptions and perversions, which just made them that much more evil and that much more dangerous. Of course, the stupid Goyim didn't know any better to this. You had to be a Jew at the highest levels to even know this to begin with. Okay. Second of all, the chief grimoire attributed to King Shlomo is a grimoire that is all about revealing the 70 archons of the Klipoth and how to work with them and evoke them. Okay, so first of all, if you possess this book, you're already immediately inviting demons into your abode. Second of all, if you begin to work with this book and do the evocations, etc., you're working with the Klipoth. It's an automatic death sentence. It's essentially a first-class ticket to hell. Okay, and if you've been initiated and you know what hell is all about, I mean, it just goes without saying. I mean, we don't need to get into the matter. It's going to be really bad. And that in and of itself is the greatest understatement of the past 2,000 years, so to speak. So, essentially, that's the gist of the matter. Is we just have had so many spiritually retarded and ignorant and stupid goyim that have been just initiating themselves into the very evil, impure occult. They've just been initiating themselves into Luciferian domain, all coming with destruction at the end for them and their spirit and their soul. Okay, now the antithesis to all of this is the 72 divine letter name, as most Kabbalists would know of. Now this has been a very esoteric subject, a very esoteric name, not even properly understood by most Kabbalists. Only the Grandmaster Kabbalists have the full knowledge and wisdom of this name and how to use it and how to invoke and evoke it. Again, this 72 divine letter name, the great mystery behind it, are working with the 70 archons that belong to the lower 7 Sefirot. Again, you're working within the Sefirot, which is permitted. We Grandmaster Kabbalists only exclusively deal and work within Ha-Sefirot. Okay? Now, the only Grandmaster Kabbalist that was initiated at the highest levels regarding this, most powerful form and aspect of high holy magic was Abraham Abulafia. Okay? So, again, you need to ask yourself, for the past 1,000 years or so, how many individuals, how many holy saints have existed that have been initiated at the highest levels, that have been working the most powerful forms of high holy magic? You can practically count them on your hands, so to speak. And how many individuals have sucked themselves into the Luciferian domain only to destroy their soul and their spirit in the end? Numerous, countless. So I hope you can begin to understand the matter, and it's becoming more ingrained into your spirit and soul to stay away from so much of what is considered occult these days, and being able to see just the vast prevalent spiritual stupidity and retardation that exists out there, and how many lost souls that are out there in the impure and holy occult, thinking that they're actually gaining holy knowledge and wisdom and elevating their spirit and their consciousness, when they're actually doing the exact opposite. It is most lamentable. You can't even express in human language how lamentable this is. And again, I guess I should apologize for digressing on this point, but it is most momentous. Now, let us proceed to speak on the Lucifer, the root and source of the Luciferian domain. Okay, we need to understand, if you're initiated, that the source of Hasferoth are the four rivers or emanations of Eden. Okay, the principal basis of the 10th Sferoth is the number 4, because mathematically the number 4 expands into the number 10 when you sum up the numbers 1 through 4 inclusively. So 4 is the basis, the potentiality, whereas 10 is the actuality, the expansion. Ergo, it logically follows that there is a quadrilateral root and source to Haklipoth. Now, I'm going to begin with some very, very esoteric and very, very advanced parables to initiate and teach you on this very high, divine, mysterious root and source of Haklipoth. We find the first occult revelation in Sefer Bereshith in chapter 1, verse 2, where it states, "And the earth was chaos and void, or unformed, and darkness was over the face of the abyss." Now, the first two Hebrew words there for chaos and void are tohu ubohu. Okay? Now, again, these Hebrew words have many meanings, right? Now, first, we need to understand that earth here, it's a very, very occult symbol. You should know that it's an occult reference to Shekhinah, the 10th emanation. Because, again, going back to the beginning, the first diagram that I displayed, the Klipoth are an emergence, an emanation of the last two emanations within Hasferoth. Okay? Because the anus is in very super close proximity to the genitalia. This is the great mystery behind the extreme great proximity between the Klipoth and the Sferoth. Now, Tohu may signify desolation or chaos, and Bohu signifies, unformation or voidness. Then we have darkness and the abyss. So what we have here principally in this Hebrew verse, again, the more you penetrate the actual Hebrew in an actual voracious ancient Hebrew Torah scroll, the more you're able to penetrate the holy mysteries within the verse. Principally, we have 4 code words here. These 4 code words allude to the Luciferian root and source of the Klipoth. Okay? Because the 10 Sferoth and the 10 Klipoth, they all reduce to a quadrilateral basis. But there's also a trilateral aspect to Haklipoth. So we need to understand that there is a singular aspect, a binary aspect, a trilateral aspect, and a quadrilateral aspect, as well as a decadal aspect. Okay? This is all mathematically very occult and very, very high knowledge and wisdom as well. Okay? So, again, we should know that regarding the trilateral aspect of Hasferoth, there is a left pillar, a middle pillar, and a right pillar. These are the 3 main pillars or foundations of Sferoth, vis-a-vis loving kindness, grace, and severity or judgment. Ergo, it logically follows that there is also a trilateral aspect to Haklipoth. This revelation, one of many, is given in Sefer Tikku Zohar in Tikku number 37, where we read, 3 Klipoth are in the foreskin, corresponding to the 3 Klipoth of a nut. Concerning them, it is said, and the earth was Tohu, Ubohu, and darkness. Tohu is the green line, which is the first klippa. Bohu is the second klippa, and darkness is the third klippa. And these three are according to the principle corresponding to the three colors of the eye. So if you were to actually go into the actual original Hebrew, in an actual ancient scroll of the Torah, in the actual verse there are certain marks, certain seals that exist that designate a partition between the first three code words, which are Tohu, Ubohu, and darkness, and the fourth, which is the abyss. It's very, very momentous, very, very critical to understand, as we will see here shortly. Now, here is the second parable that I'm going to reveal here. We read in Sefer Tikku Zohar in Tikku number 18 and folio 36a. And by the way, these are all my own personal English translations of the underlying Aramaic text. Okay? Cannot emphasize this enough. I repeat, these are my own personal English translations of the underlying Aramaic text. I am the chief magician of Mystery Babylon. This is my seal. Now it reads, they are the whirlwind. We need to understand that there are numerous holy mysteries behind the Hebrew word for whirlwind. Cannot really be emphasized enough. Now, the Hebrew word for whirlwind may also be translated as a troubling or afflicting wind or spirit. Has a negative connotation. I do not even have enough time and space here to even fully reveal the negative connotation behind this Hebrew term, and to fully get into the holy mysteries behind it, which there are many, and our esoteric texts go very deep into it. Critical to know and understand. It goes on to state, the great cloud and a flashing fire and radius surrounding it. And this is what Yechezkel saw, peace be upon him. It is said, and I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, quoting Yechezkel chapter 1, verse 4. And this is, quoting Sefer Yeshayahu chapter 34, verse 11, a line of tohu or desolation. The green klippa or shell of the nut is the green line. The big cloud is the second white klippa of the nut, and this is bohu. The flashing fire is the third klippa of the nut, and this is darkness. And a radius surrounding it, this is the fourth klippa of the nut, which seizes the kernel or the nucleus. Quoting Sefer Yechezkel chapter 1, verse 4, and from the mist, like the sight of electrum, the Hebrew word there is chashmal. It's a very enigmatic, very esoteric Hebrew word. Too many holy esoteric properties to really get into here. But it goes on to state, and this is the kernel of the nut. This is, and then a very holy divine name, which I speak about in other videos regarding Yehudim, which I won't get into here beyond the canon scope of this video. But it goes on to state, my son, until the klipot are broken through the tekiyah and shabarim and tru'ah, through them they are broken. The three different types of shofar blasts. A very powerful great mystery here is revealed. Principally, we need to understand that there is this very powerful near equation between the trilateral and quadrilateral aspect of HaKlipoth. On one level, we have three klipot, but on another level, we have four klipot. There's a relation here, a very, very profound spiritual, mystical, paradoxical relation. And it is the three klipot, the principal three klipot, that are the strongest and most fiercest of all the klipot. And essentially, we can think of them as the root source and foundation of the 10 klipot. And these three pillars of HaKlipoth can be broken. And here they are broken through the certain blasts of the shofar. Now, if you're initiated, you know that there are 3 different types of shofar blasts. If you're initiated, you understand the immense spiritual power and significance behind blasting a shofar. Okay, again, I don't have the full time and space to get into it, but essentially, the blast of a shofar, as is revealed here, spiritually breaks these 10 klipoth. Okay, we need to understand that we descend straight into a very great, powerful spiritual war and battle. We are in the midst. In this last generation, we are in the midst of a very powerful, fierce spiritual war that has been raging since the beginning of time. And right now, it is at its climax. And we must be initiated into some of the most powerful spiritual techniques to be victorious soldiers in this war that we are fighting. If you belong to our order, that you are fighting on the behalf of Hashem against our principal foe, Lucifer. And here there are 3 types of shofar blasts. There is the tekiah, the shebarim, and the trua. All these different types of shofar blasts all relate and depend as to how many shofar blasts there are and the length of the shofar blasts. Okay, and so each of these blasts corresponds to breaking one of these 3 klipoth. And this is why blowing a shofar is very powerful. Every holy initiate, every holy adept should possess a shofar in his possession. For when the evil inclination, when the forces of darkness are entrenching upon you, you can then take out the shofar and blast it. Look, it is commanded in the royal holy divine law, in the Torah, that it must be blasted on all of the holy feasts, because it is requisite that the klipoth have no dominance on the holy feasts. They must be broken. These klipoth, these shells, these husks, they must be broken. You cannot enter purity, you cannot enter the holy domain without first passing through these klipoth. And so you must break them in order to pass through them and enter the holy domain. This is one of the highest arcanum of the holy mysteries. Now we're going to again go back to Cordoverian Black Kabbalah. We read in his Magnus Opus, he states, "Let us return to the subject of the teaching of Rashbi. For the 3 klipoth correspond to the 3 patriarchs. They are the klipoth to the Chayoth of Metatron." He said they were 3 klipoth with distinct names, or there were 3 klipoth with distinct names. Besides these 3 klipoth, there is a klippa that draws near holiness that is in the space in the middle of the nut, which is the shining bright klippa. Now, one of the most ancient esoteric titles for Lucifer, as is found in our ancient divine oracles, is Helel ben Shachar, which is best translated as the immense shining bright son of the dawn or morning. Lucifer is an immensely powerful, shining bright God, no different than his twin brother Mashiach. So the reference here is, if you are initiated at the highest levels like me, is rather explicit. It is almost holy. This is what lies between the pure and the impure, and it is intermediate, and this is clear. Doubtless, the space we are speaking of is a tiny space that separates the two, which is the thin klippa from the kernel or the nucleus. This klippa is the abyss. It is the klippa that is closest to the holiness of its 3 predecessors. Of the 3, it was said, and now he's quoting 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 11 to 12, Hashem was not in the wind, Hashem was not in the earthquake, Hashem was not in the fire. Again, these are all code words for the 3 klipoth. We are initiated. We know, we understand this very, very well. Far beyond you can possibly imagine. Now, he goes on by stating, putting the seal on this holy mystery, and only concerning the small still voice was it said that Hashem was in it. Very, very, very deep holy mystery here. If you can understand it, if you can see it. Ergo, the verse says, there was a glow around it, and from inside it like the appearance of fine fire, quoting Yechezkel chapter 1, verse 27. For this fourth klippah draws very close to holiness. This is why Rashbi sometimes does not mention it with the other two klippot. Because of this, when the verse discusses planting a tree, it states, for 3 years it shall be uncircumcised to ye. Quoting Sefer Vayikra chapter 19, verse 23. Now, the Hebrew word there for uncircumcised is the same Hebrew word that signifies foreskin. In ancient Hebrew, the foreskin is synonymous with uncircumcision. It's the same Hebrew word. For the klippah or the shell, which by the way, the foreskin is in essence a klippah, always precedes the fruit. But in the 4th year, all of its fruit is holy. Now, this is found in Pardes Shimonim in Gate 25, chapter 7. Now, we have to understand that Sefer Yechezkel is one of the most esoteric and Kabbalistic books of the Bible. The opening chapter, really the whole book of Sefer Yechezkel, is a Kabbalistic manual and treatise for spiritual ascension and ecstasy, for achieving spiritual ecstasy and ascension, and the spiritual process of obtaining spiritual ecstasy, gnosis, and ascension. And what we read about there in those oracles are that Yechezkel, before he spiritually enters the holy domain, he has to first enter the klipoth. He has to break through the klipoth before he can enter the holy domain. This is the standard. You have to break the klipoth. Now, what happens with all of these very stupid and retarded, impure, unholy, ignorant occultists is many of them don't understand this. They don't know this. And so what happens is they are naturally sucked into the klipoth. And they end up staying there and residing there, being sucked into the klipoth like quicksand, sucking them in and leading them to actual destruction and spiritual annihilation in most cases. So they don't actually break the klipoth. Then there are other stupid, really, these are the most retarded spiritual, impure, unholy, occultists, mostly goyim, that think that they think that the klipoth is the end all. And so they initiate themselves into the klipoth by sinning. These are the Luciferians of the highest order, who exercise the purest doctrines, or the purest doctrine of the Luciferian dogma, which is the exact inverse of the Torah. And so they live a life full of sin, purposefully, intentionally. And this is how they enter the klipoth and get sucked in. And essentially it leads to complete spiritual annihilation and eradication and termination. And so the klipoth, again, the klipoth, its domain is the evil serpent. And this evil serpent is very, very clever, very wise, very subtle in nature, very crafty. And for the most part, being an expert in human nature, he has over a 99% success rate in sucking in human beings into his domain, all for the purposes of destroying souls and spirits. It's very sad. So most individuals don't know how to break through the klipoth to enter the holy domain. right? Yechezkel, Moshe, Yosef, these were all individuals that did so. They're very few in number, very, very few in number. The highest are very few in number. The elect are very few in number. Has always been the case. It is always at the multitude that the profane and the impure always belongs to the multitude. That's just the way it's always been. So, now I want to start to conclude the presentation by mentioning a few momentous points regarding the Luciferian domain. So, first of all, we need to understand that Asa is the apotheosis of the Luciferian domain, essentially. And one of the greatest of arcana is that essentially, and this is really only known by the most initiated Kabbalists, is that the most ancient and powerful Grammar is found in Bereshit in chapter 36 in the original Hebrew and Aramaic, as it would exist in an actual ancient Torah scroll. Now, we need to understand that the Holy Torah also contains the entire Luciferian domain and all of its mysteries. And so, yes, there are aspects and portions of the Torah that are essentially Grammars, actual black Grammars that can be used to perform, or really to evoke, the highest of the klipoth, or within the klipoth. And again, a full disquisition into this matter is far beyond the canon scope of this video. In fact, most of the powerful black magicians and individuals that run this world, most of them really Jews, spend all of their time penetrating these Luciferian mysteries and evoking and working with the entire klipoth, which is the apotheosis of black magic, really. And the high esoteric section, the Idra Rabbah in Sefer HaZohar, is one of the most esoteric sections of Sefer HaZohar, actually deals with some of the Luciferian mysteries regarding klipoth and this holy divine figure Asa in the Torah, which is an occult symbol for the Luciferian domain. Now, again, as I stated a while back, the subject of klipoth is ridiculously large and enormous in breadth. It's very, very comprehensive, and this video is really only designed to be a very, very brief introduction into the matter, and this whole video holistically is but just the tip of the iceberg. Really, it's that deep. So I just want to mention that here. I just don't have the time and space, to do super long videos, write books around all of this. In fact, a huge bulk of the Luciferian mysteries are explained in our esoteric texts anyways. And I've actually revealed some of those texts here, so that for those who are more interested can go and actually purchase English translations of those texts, which do exist, to further initiate themselves into Luciferian mysteries, which is a critical component of being a holy initiate and adept of the highest order. Okay, we have our divine archetypes before us: Moshe, Yeshua, Daniel, etc. So it goes without saying. Now, the next point is regarding the Black Kabbalah, that, as I stated a while back, it has been partially corrupted and perverted. It's not enough that the holy mysteries have been partially corrupted and perverted, but the Luciferian mysteries have also been partially corrupted and perverted. In fact, many of the divine names and seals of the Luciferian domain have been partially corrupted and perverted. This is what makes initiation and working within the left-hand path and the klipoth very, very dangerous. So it's just like I said, if you're going to actually work and practice within the left-hand path and become a Luciferian, it's a first-class ticket to hell, first-class ticket to spiritual destruction, annihilation, termination, and eradication, really. So you're basically demonstrating your stupidity, your retardation, and yeah. So that's what has to be said. So here, I wanted to here what I have on the left are the names or titles of the 10 klipoth, beginning with the first clip at the very top. Now, if I go and I have conversations with very high-level, impure, unholy occultists, mostly Luciferians and Satanists, very, very high level. These are some of the people who are at the highest levels. And I ask them, do you know the derivation and the source of much of the knowledge and wisdom that you possess? The answer is no, they can't. Especially when they're going into the most ancient and holiest of texts, which are all Hebrew in nature, by the way, Hebrew and Aramaic, really. And they have no knowledge of it, no wisdom of it. They demonstrate their ignorance before a chief grandmaster holy saint like myself. Now, there are many books. In fact, you can go on YouTube, you can go on the internet, there are numerous videos, numerous books dealing with Haklipoth, black magic, etc. It's becoming more and more prevalent in our generation because this is the last generation, and humanity has descended into a stupor of drunkenness, stupidity, and retardation, really. Okay? And yeah, I've skimmed through some of these books, videos, whatever you want to call it, and I see that all of these impure, unholy occultists are very stupid, very retarded, very ignorant, don't know what they're talking about, don't even know the source and derivation of much of what they speak upon. But here I will give it to you, because I'm that initiated. Now, these 10 names and titles of the 10 Klipot, which are very powerful divine names and titles, which should not really be invoked or evoked, are all found in Moshe Cordovero's Pardes Rimonim, mostly in Gate 25 and Gate 26 of his magnus opus. Now, he himself was initiated. He himself states that he was initiated by a very highly initiated Grandmaster Kabbalist. All the Grandmaster Kabbalists, they're the ones that possess the most ancient, most esoteric, and holiest of books. Both Luciferian, those that are Luciferian in nature, that reveal all of the Luciferian mysteries, and even those that reveal all of the holy mysteries. Okay, that's what makes us Grandmaster Kabbalist in the first place. And so he tells us that, because all the Grandmaster Kabbalists already knew this, they had this knowledge. He also states that Ramban had put his seal on these names. So these names, they're all derived from Ramban, and Ramban too was initiated. So we're talking about, the esoteric, the most ancient esoteric holy order that has all this knowledge. This is where it comes from, but it was not put into writing until Ramban and the Zohar came on the scene. The Zohar has a section called Tikku, a very esoteric section that goes into describing the lower 7 palaces of the Klipoth. And the Rambam and our esoteric literature is what first revealed in writing the names and the titles of much of what is found in the Klipoth. So the source for these 10 names and titles really in written form go back to Moshe Cordovero and the Ramban. Now, these names and their meanings, I don't have time in this video to go into. It would take too long, but they are all fully explained in Moshe Cordovero's section on the Black Kabbalah, which again are gates 25 and 26. So I divert the listener there if they want to know more about the names and essences and meanings of these names of the 10 Klipoth. Now, Sefer Tikku HaZohar, this is where we start to see an example of the corruption and perversion that has taken place in the Black Kabbalah, because the Sefer Tikku HaZohar also gives other names and titles to the 10 Klipot, which are found here. Okay. As an example, the first Klippa is called Kathriel, which comes from the Hebrew word Kether. So his source, the root and source of his name is Kether, which means crown, right? And so here we have Sefer Tikku HaZohar's revelation of other names and titles, because we need to understand that there are numerous names and titles to each Klippa, just as there are numerous names and titles to each Sphira in the Holy Domain. Now, this is where the issue comes into play, because we will see that in some of our esoteric Kabbalistic treatises, these names don't always agree with each other. Okay? Now, here's a perfect example. According to certain Grandmaster Kabbalists, the name of the first Klippa is Thumiel, which comes from the Hebrew word Thumim, which means twins. Okay? So telling us that the first Klippa are twins. Now, if you're fully initiated, you understand many of the holy mysteries behind this name and what's going on here. However, you have other Grandmaster Kabbalists that will tell you that actually the name Thumiel, which is the name of the first Klippa, is actually not in reference to the first Klippa, but to the 7th and 8th Klipoth. Because the 7th and the 8th Klipoth represent the archetypal divine testicles of the inferior Adam Kadmon. okay? Because the testicles can be thought of as twins or twin entities. So there's this confusion because when you're reading the esoteric text, the Grandmaster Kabbalists will bring out this point. They will tell you, some Grandmaster Kabbalists will tell you that the first klippa is Tumiel. Others will tell you, no, that's wrong. It's actually the seventh and eighth klipot. Which is it? Again, this is part of the corruption and perversion that has creeped into the Black Kabbalah, all by the hand of Hashem, which was worked through his chief officer, Lucifer. Okay? So that's a very critical point. So one, there are numerous names and titles to each of the klipoth, and there's also been a corruption and perversion in their name titles and seals. So this needs to be very thoroughly understood. It's very momentous to understand this point. Now here I just have a common image of the tree of death, or the klipoth. Now, what you will notice here, duly note that the structure here is identical to the structure of Hasferoth. Now, there's a great mystery behind all of this, because as a prerequisite to understand this, you will have to go and see a video that I uploaded a while back entitled The Correct Diagram of the Sferoth. The modern day diagram of the Sferoth is not the true ancient correct diagram of Hasferoth. If you want to know more about this, you can go and see that video, which I believe is entitled Hasferoth Part 3. And only the highest, most initiated Grandmaster Kabbalists, those that actually belong to the Holy Illuminati, know this. Those that do not belong to the Holy Illuminati, who belong to lower inferior grades below the Holy Illuminati, don't know this. And essentially, the correct diagram of Hasferoth is the inverse of what everybody knows it as today. Now, it would logically follow that the correct structure of the Klipothic diagram would then have to be the inverse of that. So this diagram here is actually the inverse of the correct diagram of Hasferoth. Now, only the Luciferians at the highest levels, those that belong to the highest, most esoteric order of Lucifer, would know this, because this is the correct diagram. What I'm showing you here is the correct diagram to the klipoth. Now, there are many advanced, impure, and unholy Luciferians and Satanists that when they draw their own personal esoteric diagram of the klipoth, will actually inverse this, will turn this upside down. They're initiated enough to know that the klipoth is an inverse of the Sferoth, or the Tree of Life. But they're not initiated enough to know that the current diagram of Hasferoth is wrong. So we need to ask ourselves, is the prevalent common diagram of HaKlipoth correct by accident or not? This is the great mystery. Now, again, going back to what I've been emoting at on and off here, on just immense spiritual retardation, which is just left and right these days, we need to understand that we inhabit the lowest universes. Our construct, the construct that we inhabit, one of an infinite number of constructs, is that we inhabit the lowest universe. Principally, there are 4 universes, 4 levels of reality. We inhabit the universe of Asiya, which is the lowest universe. Within this universe, there are an infinite number of constructs and simulations. We inhabit one such that is very low. We're at the lowest end of the spectrum of divinity here. Okay? Our construct is within the domain of HaKlipoth. It is enveloped and enclosed by the Luciferian husks and shells. Most of the divine entities that are interfering within our domain are of HaKlipoth. Practically all occultists, mostly impure, unholy, ignorant goyim, this is what they work with. They're working with the Klipoth, and they don't know it because they don't know where they came from. They don't know where they're going. They don't know their spiritual root and essence. They don't know the nature of the construct they inhabit. Woe unto them. for all of this stupidity and ignorance. If they knew, if they were truly initiated, they wouldn't be practicing and performing any of the dark arts, right? That many of these impure and holy occultists, that they get a hold of all of these very common, famous grimoires and occult books, all this, gobbledygook, really. They start working with divine entities. They start summoning and invoking and evoking all of these divine entities, thinking, "Ooh, look at me! I summoned this angel and that angel." Some are stupid enough to think they summon archangels and whatnot, and who knows what. And they're working with all of these angels, and they don't know that they're all demons in disguise. Some of them are fallen angels. They're all being manipulated and deceived by the Klipoth, because they don't know. They can't see. They're spiritually blind. They don't see the Klipoth for what they truly are. They see the Klipoth as almost on the level of the Sferoth. They're working with the monkey, not the man, not the divine man. They're working with excrement, divine dross and refuse, not divine semen. They're not worshiping the true archetypal divine phallus. They're worshiping and working with the filthy, impure foreskin. It's very, very lamentable, to say the least. Many of them are already burning in hell, and much more are going to go and descend into hell. And a good proportion are going to be completely spiritually annihilated, terminated, and eradicated. So, now I conclude the presentation with one of my favorite verses from my most favorite book, really my most favorite song in the entire universe, Shir HaShirim, chapter 6, verse 11, where my great grandfather, King Shlomo, stated and wrote, really saying, "I descended to the nut garden." Now, the question is, do you know what the nut garden is? Have you descended into the nut garden? Again, do you even know what this means? The true implications and ramifications of all of this? I don't really think so. I have placed all of you here with this video at the very tip of the nut garden. Shalom. Ramein.